Welcome to our fourth and final webinar in the Florida Institute for Child Welfare's Cultivating Belonging series. Today's webinar is Compassionate Communication, the Key to Connection. Our hosts are Melissa Green, the Hope Court Director, and Kira Jackson, the Hope Court Assistant Director. And I'm going to keep my introductions short so that we have time to get through everything. So I'm going to just pass things off to our wonderful hosts.
Well, welcome everybody and good morning. Welcome to Compassionate Communication, the Key to Connection. My name is Melissa Green and I'm the Director of Hope Court.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kira Jackson. I am the Assistant Director of Hope Court.
We're going to take a moment to ground ourselves and be present in the space together. So if you are sitting with knees crossed or ankles crossed, I would invite you to uncross those, to place your feet on the earth, the ground beneath you. Feel the back of the chair against your own back. I would invite you to close your eyes or look down if that feels comfortable for you. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths together. So a big inhale and exhale. Another inhale and exhale. And last one, a big inhale. And when you get to the top of the inhale, take one more sip of air and then exhale, sigh it out. Go ahead and open our eyes or look up and we'll play a quick 3, 2, 1 game to get present. So I'll invite you to silently look around and identify for yourself 3 things that you can see, 2 things that you can feel, and 1 thing that you can hear. And we'll begin with some reflections. We're going to read a few statements that mean a whole lot to us, and then we'll invite you guys to share any of them that particularly meant something to you or were appealing to you. If you've come to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you've come because your liberation is bound with mine, then let us work together.
We ask 18-year-olds to make huge decisions about their career and financial future when a month ago they had to ask to go to the bathroom.
I have learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
What does it mean to hold space for someone else? It means that we are willing to walk alongside another person in whatever journey they're on without judging them, making them feel inadequate, trying to fix them, or trying to impact the outcome. When we hold space for other people, we open our hearts, offer unconditional support, and let go of judgment and control.
Imagine if we measured success by the amount of safety that people felt in our presence. So we just like to open it up and feel free to just call out, but we'll take a couple volunteers to share one that is appealing to them.
This is Oliver Green. I have learned that people will forget what you say, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you, Oliver.
All right, so before we get into our discussion around compassionate communication, we'd like to share a little bit about Hope Court and what we do. So the Hope in Hope Court stands for Helping Older Teens Powerfully Engage. And Hope Court brings restorative justice-based court hearings and supportive youth and transitional independent living planning circles to youth in foster care throughout the year leading up to their 18th birthday, and beyond. Hope Court infuses restorative practices into the foster care system to improve connection, compassion, and build community. Our mission is to work with our youth to create a safe space where our youth are deeply heard, valued, and co-creators in their new lives. For more information, please visit our website, hopecourtfl.org. Now, Hope Court is built upon the solid foundation of restorative practices and nonviolent communication. Restorative practices is a theory and practical application derived from the principles of restorative justice. These approaches are at the core of our work, guiding us in our mission to improve the lives of older teens in the child welfare system. Our focus today is going to be on nonviolent or compassionate communication. So let's get started. So how do we define compassionate communication? What exactly is it? It's the exchange of information, ideas, feelings, and thoughts between individuals or groups through various methods like our speech, our verbal communication, our written communication, our nonverbal cues like our body language, our facial expressions, gestures, eye contact, etc. And when we combine those with empathy, what we get is a mutual understanding of feelings and needs. And that is essentially what compassionate communication is.
So what is empathy? Today, we're going to utilize empathy teachings from Dr. Becky Kennedy, the author of Good Inside. And Dr. Becky says that empathy is our ability to understand and relate to the feelings of another person. It comes from our ability to be curious and allows us to explore another's emotional experience from a place of learning and not judgment. And really important and often misunderstood, empathy is not agreeing, but rather validating someone's feelings and allowing space for another to be heard free of judgment. Giving empathy allows others to feel like someone's on their team. It makes their experience more manageable, and it helps to build emotional regulation skills. And very importantly for us, with the work that we all do, and especially our work in Hope Court, empathy fuels connection.
So why does empathetic communication work? Well, it meets needs for value and mattering, for trust and respect. And like Melissa just said, it fuels connection. It increases engagement, increases problem solving, allows for better emotional safety and understanding. And it also allows us to be seen, be heard. And like Melissa also said, it helps build our emotional regulation skills and also increases our engagement.
Our number one goal with this empathetic communication is connection. That's connection with each other, connection with our youth, connection with our fellow child welfare professionals, and connection with ourselves. We're going to use Brene Brown's definition for purposes of our shared reality today. Connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. Today's lingo, today's terminology, you guys have heard us say empathetic communication, compassionate communication, nonviolent communication. Those are synonymous terms. The term and theory of nonviolent communication was created by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. And NVC is a practice, it's a way of being that fosters deep listening, respect, and empathy. We can use NVC to respond compassionately to ourselves and to create connection in relationship with others, meaning we can use this tool of NVC both for self-empathy and for empathy for others. Now, when you hear nonviolent communication, when you hear that term, you may think, I don't speak violently, I don't raise my voice, I don't yell, I don't use fighting words, I don't use profane language. Dr. Rosenberg used the term violent to mean any language that disconnects us from each other. So thinking of that, thinking of how Dr. Rosenberg defines nonviolent communication, here's some food for thought. If violent means acting in ways that hurt or harm, then how much of how we communicate with judgment could indeed be called violent communication? So let's talk a little bit about NVC, or compassionate communication. How do we do it, and what does it look like? Dr. Rosenberg teaches us that NVC is comprised of 4 parts. We use the acronym OFNR, stands for observation, feelings, and requests. We'll start with step 1. Step 1, observations. Observing without evaluating. Our goal here with step 1 is that we think and communicate in terms of facts or observations and not judgments. So when we respond to something, we want to think about what we actually saw or heard. Facts only. Think 5 senses: see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. A pure observation would be only what an audio video camera could record. So we want to separate that pure observation from what is our opinion or what's our filter on what is happening. So we'll start with a little game. I'm going to read statements, and when you hear the expression, if you'd like to move around, you can stand if you think it's an observation, or you can raise your hand, or you can sit if you think it's an evaluation, or leave your hand down. So you'll stand or raise your hand if you think it's an observation. You'll sit or leave your hand down if you think it's an evaluation or a judgment. Ron's clothes are on the floor. That's an observation. Ron is messy, lazy, and disorganized. That's an evaluation. Regine is accomplished and dedicated. Also an evaluation. Regine completes a project. Observation. Joe returned the car with the gas gauge on E. Observation. Joe is lazy, inconsiderate, and disrespectful. Evaluation. Stephen stomps his feet and says no. Observation. Stephen is stubborn and uncooperative. Evaluation. Stephen stomps his feet and says no. That's an observation. And I repeated that one. Stephen is decisive, clear, and a true leader. That's an evaluation. So you'll notice that last one I repeated. The observation was the same. Stephen stomps his feet and says no. But the filter or the evaluation applied led to 2 different thoughts. Stephen is stubborn and uncooperative, or Stephen is decisive, clear, and a true leader. So that really highlights why it's super important to try to respond using observations.
So let's talk about step 2, which is feelings. And in step 2, what we want to do is express how we feel in relation to what we observe. But like, what are feelings? Feelings are indicators that help us understand if a need is being met or unmet. And what we want to do is focus on words that describe our inner experience rather than words that describe our interpretations of people's actions or our opinions. And our goal with feelings is to develop a vocabulary of feelings that allow us to clearly and specifically name or identify our emotions. So we have a little game. So we have a feelings and need sheet that was sent in the chat, and also that was emailed prior to our webinar. And so we want you to take that out. And using the feeling side, at the top, one says universal needs and the other side says feelings. Using the feeling side, Melissa or I, we're going to say a scenario, and we want you to listen to that scenario, and we want you to guess or name what we might be feeling based on that scenario. So the scenario number 1, I'm on my way home from a long day of work, and I'm stuck in bumper to bumper traffic, and someone just cut me off. How might I be feeling? And respond freely, please.
Upset.
Upset, yeah. The feeling.
Agitated.
Agitated, thank you. Anyone else? How might I be?
Frustrated. Sorry, we have a bunch of kids here.
It's okay. Yes, frustrated.
I'm seeing in the chat mad, impatient, frustrated, stressed.
Exactly. All of those things. And the word that I particularly chose in that scenario was angry, but all of those are accurate feeling descriptions.
Okay. I applied for a job I really wanted. I got selected for an interview. I I interviewed for the job. It went really well. And I just got an email that they decided to move in a different direction. Any guesses on how I might be feeling?
Upset.
Devastated. Is that
Upset.
I'd be devastated.
upset? Worried.
Devastated. Absolutely.
Upset.
Word too, upset. And I see in the chat a couple of disappointed. And
Discouraged.
disappointed
I
was
felt
the
a
word I
little
chose.
embarrassed
Discouraged.
too. I'm a perfectionist.
Unhappy. Absolutely. Great job, guys.
Thank you guys. Great job. All right. And in expressing how we are feeling, it's important that we distinguish our actual feelings from words and statements that describe thoughts and judgments, which we call our faux or false feelings. So, in general, feelings are not being clearly expressed when the word feel is followed by the word that, the word like, or the expression as if. Let's look at some examples. So the first one, I feel that you should know better. You'll see there an actual feeling is not being clearly expressed. What that is more of a thought. Or what about I feel like a failure? There again, an actual feeling is not clearly being expressed. That one's more of a judgment. Or how about I feel as if I'm living with a wall? Again, no actual feeling is being clearly expressed, but an actual thought or judgment is being expressed. In addition, if the word feel is followed by the word I, you, he, she, they, or it, feelings are not being clearly expressed. So let's look at the first example here. If I feel I am constantly on call, is that an actual feeling being expressed? No, that's more of a thought. But let's think about it. Like, what actual feeling would be expressed if I'm having that thought process, that I'm actually constantly on call?
What do you think, buddy?
Like overwhelmed.
Yes.
Good.
Good job. Irritated. I see in the chat. I see exhausted. Absolutely. So taking advantage of, if you look at your feelings and need sheet on the feeling side, is not an actual feeling. So that would be more of a thought or a judgment as well. But yeah. And let's go to, I feel it is useless. That again shows that an actual feeling is not clearly being expressed, but that's more of a thought as well. So in addition, if the word feel is being followed by names or nouns that refer to people, again, an actual feeling is not being clearly expressed. So the example, I feel Amy has been pretty responsible, though that's a positive thought. It's not an actual feeling being clearly expressed. Or I feel my boss is being manipulative. That again, not an actual feeling being clearly expressed, but more of a thought or a judgment. And so we have a little tip. In the examples below, try replacing the word feel with the word think. And if you do, you'll take a minute to notice that what we think may not always be an actual feeling. Another thought is, if you replace the word feel with think and that sentence makes sense, that's another clue that what you're expressing is a thought and not an actual feeling. So the first example, I feel that you should know better. If I replace feel with, I think that you should know better, that sentence still makes sense. That lets me know that I'm thinking a thought and not expressing an actual feeling. All right. So let's play a little game to help us distinguish our actual feelings from our faux feelings. So in which of the following statements are actual feelings being expressed? We want you to put a thumbs up, or you can actually use your thumbs if you think it's an actual feeling, or a thumbs down if you think it's a faux feeling. You can use your emoji thumbs up and thumbs down as well. All right, first one. I feel disrespected. Who thinks that's an actual feeling or a faux feeling? All right, so those who put thumbs down, that is correct. It's a faux feeling. What about I'm irritated? Actual feeling? Faux feeling. Thumbs up. That's right. That's an actual feeling being expressed. Third example. I feel that Joe doesn't like me. Good job. Faux feeling. And what about this one? I'm happy. Actual feeling. Yes. And then that's when, how about this one? I feel manipulated. Actual feeling or faux feeling? Yep, faux feeling. Good job, everybody. So another tip, you'll notice that it's not necessary to actually use the word feel at all when you're actually expressing a feeling. So with that example with number 2, where you say, I'm irritated, if you could say, I feel irritated or I'm irritated, and they both work because they're both actually expressing a feeling. But if you took the word feel out of like, I feel disrespected, I disrespected, doesn't make sense. So that's also a clue that you're not actually expressing an actual feeling. All right.
That brings us to step 3, our needs, or identifying the needs behind our feelings. Needs are a universal expression of our deepest shared humanity. And though our strategies to meet our needs may be different, our underlying needs are that deepest shared thing we have. And most of us have not been taught to think in terms of needs. We're accustomed to have been taught to think about what's wrong with other people or ourselves when our needs aren't being met. Feelings are great clues for us. They can help us to be needs detectives in identifying what our needs are, what we did need, what we might still be needing. So here's an example. My kiddos are fighting and I'm on a work Zoom and they're fighting behind me. I'm feeling stressed, I'm overwhelmed, and I'm thinking, you guys need to calm down. But what I really need is peace and ease. And there are many different strategies that could meet that need. Sometimes we jump to communicating or arguing at a strategy level without awareness of what the underlying need actually is. And that can really lead to conflict. Marshall Rosenberg says all conflict is the tragic expression of an unmet need. So let's have an example of jumping to the strategy level before identifying an unmet need. We have 2 partners, they're having a conflict. Partner A is really upset. Partner B thinks, we need a date. That's a strategy. Partner A actually really needs support, especially in the mornings. So once that need is established, a strategy can be implemented that works for both and meets the underlying need. Partner A can do morning drop-offs on Mondays and Wednesdays. Partner B can do morning drop-offs on Tuesday and Thursday. They can switch Fridays, and that meets that need for support. And a date is always a nice extra, but we really, we're able to identify that unmet need and be able to find a strategy that would work to meet that. So let's play a game. I have my game room over here that always gets excited when we start a game. I love it. So we're going to use your feelings and needs sheets, the one that you have. And we've been looking at the feeling side. We're going to look at the needs side. And you guys are going to guess the need for the person making these statements below. Start with this one. You aren't listening to me. What might the needs be behind that statement? And you guys can feel free to call out or use the chat.
No,
What do you think, Bud?
they need care.
Attention?
Okay. And I'm hearing care.
Care.
Someone said
Care, yeah. They need
What are the words under care, guys?
is that generosity? I can't see it from back here.
Maybe.
Comfort. Love.
Also, look at safety, guys. What do you think about safety? Because they're saying like, I feel frustrated when you come in.
Order. They need order. Trust and
So for the first one, you aren't listening to me. I see harmony, nurturing, respect in the chat. Maybe to be heard, maybe some support or some shared reality, some understanding or clarity. I see acceptance in the chat. I love all you guys' guesses. And I think we started taking some guesses on this one. How about, I feel frustrated when you come in late. What might I need?
They need order. They need order. They need
Safety, yeah, they need
Safety,
predictability.
order.
They need order. They need like
Structure, I see security, I see accountability. I'm thinking maybe some consideration or like effectiveness. Maybe there's some stuff we have to get done, some productivity. Maybe like some respect and care. I think I heard order, some ease, reliability. Okay, how about this last one, guys? What about this one? If I said, you don't care about me, what might I need? Go ahead, you guys can just scream it out. Care. Care, maybe some love, some affection and support. Anything else, guys? Compassion, I see in the chat. Appreciation, support, help, love, understanding. Maybe
Someone's
some
being seen.
validation, curious it to be seen, valuing. Love that, value, mattering. Maybe some understanding, some connection. Awesome. Think you guys are really understanding needs. Love to see it. Thanks for playing.
All right, so let's go into the fourth component of NVC or compassionate communication, and that is request. And our requests are what we would like from the other person in order to get our unfulfilled needs met. Now, we want our requests to be stated in clear, positive, concrete action language, and we want them to be specific and doable. So let's look at some examples. So the first one, I want you to tell me what you heard me say. In that example, what the person could be needing is some understanding. And a way for that need to be met is to ask the other person to tell them what they heard them say. Or what about the example, I'd like you to prepare dinner every Monday night. That could be a partner needing some support at home. And their specific request is for their partner to help them prepare dinner every Monday night so that they don't have to prepare dinner every night. The other one is, I want you to tell me what needs of yours are met by smoking and to discuss with me other ways of meeting those needs. Again, in this particular instance, there could be needs of overall wellness or stability for someone, and your specific request is that we could discuss some strategies or ways to meet the needs of you smoking in another manner. And so with requests, we want to try to avoid vague, abstract, or ambiguous phrasing. And in making our requests clear, positive, and in concrete action language, we actually reveal what we want. We take away confusion, we take away guessing, because oftentimes I think we think that the other person should automatically know what it is that we're needing, automatically know what it is that we're feeling. But by making our requests specific and clear, we take away that guessing game. And we want them to be stated in positive language because when requests are worded in negative language, they typically tend to provoke resistance. And they tend to typically provoke action via guilt or shame. And that's not what we want either. So the clearer we are about what we want, the more likely it is that we'll get it. So now that you guys know like the 4 components of nonviolent communication or passionate communication, you'd probably be thinking like, well, how does this all like tie together? How do I actually, use this OF&R? So let's utilize an example. Let's tie it together using this scenario. A youth and their social worker are having a conflict about school grades and attendance. The youth told their social worker that school has been going good, that they go every single day, and that their grades are all A's and B's. But the youth's actual educational records from school show that the youth has 10 unexcused absences, has 4 D's and 2 F's. And so a conversation not using OF&R could go something like this. Like the social worker could say to the youth, like, why did you tell me that school was going good and that you were going every day and that your grades were good when you've actually missed 10 days of school and you're failing? That likely might provoke a defensive response from the youth where, he or she yells and uses profane language and says something like, man, y'all don't understand. I'm here all alone. I got no support. and all you guys focus is on the negative. You never focus on the positive. And they provide like a defensive explanation, like, you know, I have a hard time waking up, and when I miss the bus, there's nobody here at the home that could take me to school, so I just end up missing school and I miss school assignments. Now, if we were to use our OFNR and kind of break this down, break the conflict down, what we would see is that our observation would be what the youth initially said, that they were going to school daily, that their grades were good, and that school was going good overall. That would be one of our observations. The other would be the actual educational records, because that is what we have seen with our eyes, and that is what we have heard. Remember, observation is our 5 senses. Now, if we take some guesses around the feelings that the youth may need in this particular moment, we may think that the youth is maybe disappointed, maybe needs some support or help with school. Maybe feeling embarrassed or uncomfortable. I jumped ahead when I said the needs, forgive me. And in turn, the social worker may be feeling worried or fearful because if the youth isn't going to school, if the youth isn't passing, you know, maybe the youth may not be promoted to the next grade level or maybe not graduate. On the other hand, if we take some needs guesses, we would say that the youth might be needing some support or help, like I said earlier, maybe needing some sort of understanding. In turn, the social worker may be needing some achievement or success for the youth, maybe some understanding, some honesty, some communication, or maybe like some shared reality. And if we put all of that together and we remix that conversation using OFNR and make an OFNR statement, the social worker may say to the youth something like this: I heard you say you were attending school every day and that your grades were all A's and B's. And I noticed that your school records show 10 unexcused absences, 4 D's, and 2 F's. Again, that's our observation. And then with our feelings, might say something like, I'm guessing you're feeling embarrassed or disappointed. And I'm worried and fearful. And when we go to the needs, the social worker may say, I have needs for your success and your achievement. And our request could be something general like, could you help me understand what happened? Or it could be something specific if the youth provided the explanation around having difficulty waking up. It could be something like, well, since you're required to be at the bus stop at 7 a.m., would you be willing to set 2 alarms on school days as a reminder to wake up, one at 6 a.m. as a warning, and the second at 6:15 to actually get up? You'll notice that that conversation, like it even in your body, it's different. And that it's likely to provoke a different response from a youth if a social worker came from that standpoint using OFNR than in the scenario where I described, where the social worker kind of came in and was like, well, why'd you tell me this? It's going to provoke a different response. And so that is our how to make an OFNR statement. Now, we also have a tip that our teacher, our MVC teacher, Dr. Cindy Bigby, taught us. And that is, if you are not in the space to communicate with compassion, it's okay to wait or to take a moment or some time before responding. So we want you to know that MVC is a muscle that you have to train and that you have to practice. Melissa and I often say that we're constantly learning how to utilize MVC every single day. And learning how to communicate compassionately it's okay if in that particular moment you don't have it to communicate compassionately. It's okay to take some time to actually think through OFNR before responding to someone. The objective of MVC is not to change people and their behavior in order to get our way or to get people to do what we want. It's to establish a relationship based upon honesty and empathy that will eventually fulfill everyone's needs. So I imagine that after learning all of this, you might be feeling a little overwhelmed. I know I was the first time I was introduced to MVC, and I had thoughts like, is this practical? Could I use this day to day? And I don't know if I could do this. And so we have a few tips and tricks and cheat codes that we'd like to say that our friend Andrea Cooperman, who's also a therapist, shared with us. And it's what she utilizes when she's also communicating compassionately with her clients. And so the first one is to be mindful of your nonverbal communication. I always say my mom used to tell me that my face spoke before my mouth did. And so I think we are not always mindful that our facial expressions speak as well as our mouth does. And so I always, I try to ensure that my face, that my body language, and that my mouth are all saying the same things. You also want to state observable facts with a level of empathy and ask for clarification. So in the example that we have, I see that you're looking down at the ground and are very quiet. That's our observation. And then, can you help us understand what's going on? That's our ask for clarification. Also, you want to validate feelings and experiences. And like Melissa said before, MVC is not agreeing with what someone else is saying. It's saying that it's okay. It's acknowledging that it's okay for you to feel and experience what it is that you've experienced. So our example is, you didn't want that to happen. I hear you. That's not agreeing. That's just acknowledging that I understand your feelings. I'm acknowledging that you felt that way and that you've had that experience. We also want to use I statements to express our feelings, experiences, needs, wants, our boundaries, and create moments for connection. The I statement is very important because that is the connecting piece. And also, we want to be curious and non-judgmental.
Here is some really helpful info on a cheat code to address inconsistencies with connection. A lot of times, especially when working with youth, we are sometimes presented with information that is inconsistent, with a youth potentially sharing with us two statements that are not exactly the same. And that may lead to some thoughts around honesty. A lot of times, Kara and I hear thoughts around the word manipulative. And when those thoughts are coming through, what we really want to do is try to figure out what the underlying need is behind the inconsistency that we're hearing. We want to keep the communication going, keep the conversation going, keep that connection. So here's a way to address an inconsistency and keep the communication open. You're going to use I statements. You're going to state both observable facts, and you're going to connect them with the conjunction and instead of the conjunction but, and follow that up with a statement of curiosity. Here's what that looks like. You have a scenario of a youth requesting tutoring. However, you already made 2 referrals and they failed to meet with the tutor the last 2 times that you set appointments. Conversation will look a little bit like this. I know you're requesting tutoring, and I also know that the last 2 times I set up the appointments, you were not able to be there. Can you help me understand what happened? We followed up with a statement of curiosity, and now hopefully we can keep that communication going so we can find out what's the underlying need here, and maybe we can end up figuring out a strategy to meet that.
So some cheat codes to create connection. Oftentimes we use words like should or need to or have to or must. And instead of using that, try saying encourage, suggest, or recommend. So an example, instead of saying something like you need to stop smoking, try saying I would encourage you to stop smoking, or I would recommend you stop smoking. Or instead of saying why, try saying help me understand. Instead of saying it could always be worse, try saying I see how this is a big deal for you right now. Like it could always be worse sounds very pacifying and often creates a defensive response. And I think we often say that thinking like we're trying to make someone feel better. And oftentimes you'll notice that that's not the response that we get. Or instead of saying don't feel sad, worried, or scared, try saying it's okay, or it's understandable to be feeling that. Again, acknowledging and validating the person's experience or feelings.
Here are some cheat code questions to respond to challenging behaviors. We share these from the International Institute for Restorative Practices. Again, these questions were designed to be used in moments of challenge and moments of conflict to keep the conversation going. And we can especially use these when some sort of harm has occurred. What happened? What were you thinking about at the time? What have you thought about since? Who do you think has been affected by what was done, and in what way? What do you think needs to be done to make things right?
Now you notice the question why is missing from above. And the IRP says that we don't ask the question why, because why can make people defensive, and people tend to shut down when they're defensive. Remember, our goal is to open up and create connection. So oftentimes too, when many people are asked why, especially teenagers, the response that you get is, I don't know. And I don't know doesn't allow us to actually ascertain like what's going on, or allow us to help develop strategies to meet any underlying needs. So that is why we don't ask the question why. Instead, we ask what happened.
Okay, so what happens if we mess this up? We have a conversation that we wish we hadn't. We use words that we wish we didn't. And now we're at a point where there's some harm in a relationship. Is this over? Is it the end? Dr. Becky's quote, that is one of her favorite for me, is that healthy relationships are defined not by a lack of rupture, but by how well we repair. And here is Dr. Becky's script for changing the ending and our cheat code to repair. Number 1, share that you've been reflecting around what happened and say you're sorry. Number 2, acknowledge the other person's experience. You can use some of your NVC skills here. Maybe give them a little empathy, guess some of their feelings and needs around what happened. Number 3, state what you would do differently next time. And number 4, connect through curiosity now that things feel safer. So maybe following up with a question like, now that we've had this conversation, I'm wondering how you're feeling. Would you be comfortable sharing that with me now moving forward? So that's our little script for changing the ending, thanks to Dr. Becky.
And we just want to emphasize that the F and the N in OFNR, they're just guesses. So you're literally looking at the feelings and needs sheet and guessing what the other person may be feeling. They don't have to be right. That was my challenge when learning NVC first up. I had the pressure of thinking that I had to be right and that I had to know what the other person was feeling and or needing. And it isn't. The guess allows the other person to ascertain what's actually going on within them, to actually figure out what the underlying feeling and need is that they are expressing or experiencing. So NVC is not only a tool that we could use to learn how to better communicate with others, it's a tool we can also use to learn how to better connect with ourselves. Dr. Rosenberg says that NVC's most important use may be in developing self-compassion. So we're constantly evaluating ourselves. And by evaluating, what I mean is judging ourselves. Think of like a recent situation where you did something you wish you had. And think to yourself, you don't have to share it out loud. How did you speak to yourself immediately after that happened? If you're like me, it may have sounded something like, man, that was dumb. Or like, what's wrong with me? Or, dang, I messed up. Or I shouldn't have done that. All of those are self-judgments. And Dr. Rosenberg says that self-judgments are also tragic expressions of unmet needs. The way we typically evaluate or judge ourselves is often around what we did wrong. And Dr. Rosenberg says that when we are internally violent toward ourselves, it is then difficult to be genuinely compassionate toward others. So NVC helps us create a more peaceful state of mind by encouraging us to focus on what we are truly wanting rather than on what is wrong with ourselves or with others. And so we use NVC to learn how to translate judgments, not only with speaking to others and with others, but also doing the same thing for ourselves.
So how do we give ourselves empathy? Our recommendation is to take a magical minute. We need to become our own feelings and needs detectives and focus our attention on identifying our feelings and our underlying unmet needs. In NVC language, we actually call this mourning, or giving ourselves the space to connect with the unmet feelings and needs that we might have. The greatest tool that we have is to take an intentional pause. My favorite yoga teacher, Leslie Blickman, her mantra is pause, breathe, notice. You take that magical minute, you take that intentional pause, make sure you're breathing, because oftentimes when we're distressed, we stop. And notice how your body's feeling inside. Notice, are your muscles tense? Are your fists balled up? Are you sweating? Is your heart racing? Try to name your feelings and use those as clues to detect what needs you are mourning. Here's our takeaway tip. Pause. Take a minute, take several minutes, take a few days if you need them. Listen empathetically to yourself to hear the underlying unmet need. Decide what you're feeling in your body, really think through that and think, what do I need or what did I need? And what are some strategies I can use to meet that need? And perhaps the strategy doesn't look like what you thought it might, but maybe identifying the need helps you figure out another kind of creative strategy to get your need met.
So a series of reactions can occur in your body when your body's stress response is triggered by some type of stressor. Imagine a time when you felt scared or you felt nervous, when you were like dealing with something stressful or scary like traffic or like a conflict with a coworker or some sort of financial struggle or illness. And think about the sensations in your body. What did it feel like? It probably was a quickening of your pulse. Your breathing was more rapid, might have been changes in your blood pressure or your muscle tension. I'm guessing that you were probably very tense and very high alert. That is your body's stress response at work. And often when we are stressed, we respond in either fight, flight, or freeze mode. Fight is we get defensive. Flight is we walk away from it. Freeze is we get stuck and we can't move on from it. So there are some strategies that can help us reverse this stress response and bring our body back to its natural state. Here are a few examples. Somatic practice like breathing exercises. And what we mean by somatic practice is body-centered activities that help us reconnect to our bodies to promote health, well-being, and body awareness. Also like writing in a journal, any type of exercise, visualizing a calming scene or using aromatherapy to calm your senses. And then obviously the ones that we struggle with the most, probably getting enough sleep and eating a balanced diet. I know I do. Our homework for you is to jot down a couple that spell stress relief for you. And when we give ourselves empathy and we connect to our underlying feelings and needs in the moment, what we'll notice is that in our body, we diffuse stress and we release that tension as our self-judgments dissipate.
So let's try and practice some of these somatic things together, some of these somatic practices together. And all of the kiddos can join in with these too. So to start, go ahead and get in a comfortable seated position. Again, if you ended up crossing those knees, those legs, those ankles, go ahead and uncross. Feel your feet on the ground, the earth beneath you, and your back against your chair. Relax your head and your neck and your face. Take a breath in and breathe out. And we're going to start with Dr. Wheel's 4-7-8 breathing technique. Feel free to close your eyes or look down if that feels comfortable in your body. And we're going to breathe in through our nose for 4 seconds. Hold that breath for 7 seconds. And exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds. Breathe in for 4 through your nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out through your mouth for 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in for 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale through your mouth for 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time, breathe in for 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And exhale through your mouth. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And flutter those eyes open or look up and just notice how you feel in your body at the end of this exercise. And we'll practice one other. Butterfly taps or thigh taps. I'll show you both and then do whichever one feels best for you. So you're in your comfortable seat. You're going to gently cross your arms over your chest. Your fingertips touch your opposite arms. And you'll just begin a gentle rhythmic tapping motion with your hand, alternating between your left and right sides. Like a heartbeat, the motion is rhythmic. Maybe feels like a gentle butterfly tapping landing on your arms. And you're just going to take natural, slow, deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Alternately, you can take both of your hands and place them on your thighs, and you can tap rhythmically, just like that heartbeat, and alternate between your left and right fingertips. And continue with those deep, slow breaths. Breathing in and out. Continuing with the gentle tapping, alternating left and right. Acknowledging any emotions or thoughts you might have. No judgment. And when you practice this at home, you'll continue in this for a few minutes until you notice a shift in how you're feeling. Thank you guys for practicing.
So our call to action to you is to create your own reminder or affirmation or mantra or self-talk statement that encourages you to come from a place of understanding and to communicate with compassion. I'll share mine. Mine is from Michelle Obama, and it's her famous, "When they go low, you go high."
And I will share Andrea Cooperman's, our friend and therapist. They aren't giving me a hard time. They're having a hard time.
So that's our homework for you.
And we'll close with a moment of self-compassion. Again, I will invite you to close your eyes or look down if you would like. This is a reading from Dr. Becky's book, Good Inside. And I invite you to think of any of the terms that she states, like parenting or taking care of kids, as the supporting and caring that we do in all of our relationships, personal and professional. I often think that parenting is really an exercise in our own development and growth. When we have kids, when we care for others, we are confronted with so many truths about ourselves, our childhoods, and our relationships with our families of origin. And while we can use this information to learn and unlearn, break cycles, and heal, we have to do this work while also caring for our kids, caring for others, managing tantrums, getting by on limited sleep, sometimes limited resources, and feeling depleted. That's a lot. Maybe we can all take a moment right now to acknowledge this incredible challenge. Place your hand on your heart and say these words. I am both working on myself and working to take care of my family and others. I'm trying to rewire the patterns that do not benefit me, and I'm trying to wire my kids from the start for resilience and feeling at home in themselves. Wow, I am doing so much. Thank you guys for all you do, for all the care and the hard work. We see you.
Thank you guys so much for being with us today. We are so grateful that you took some time out of your day to connect with us. The sources that we cited are IIRP, the International Institute for Restorative Practices, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg in his book, Nonviolent Communication, Dr. Becky, her book, Good Inside, Andrea Cooperman, the co-founder of Insightful Therapist, Rebecca Bala, Journey to Wellness and her Soma and Soul series. Our empathy games came from Grok the World, Jean Morrison and Christine King, and Dr. Cindy Bigby, the Bigby Method. We hope that this presentation met your needs for learning and for growth. And again, we are so grateful and thankful for you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.